The pitch on every Antidetect browser page reads the same: undetectable, bulletproof, run unlimited accounts, never get flagged. I have paid for most of these tools, run real profiles through them on live accounts, and watched a few of those accounts die anyway. So let me say the useful part first. No browser on this list makes you invisible, and the one you pick matters far less than the proxy underneath it and the way you actually behave once you are logged in. What a good anti-detect browser does by you is clean separation between profiles, and that is worth understanding before you spend a cent. How I judge these: I run a fleet across several platforms, which means I keep dozens of profiles open in these browsers on an ordinary working day, each one paired to its own proxy. So I am not reading spec sheets. I am watching which of these tools corrupt a profile after a sync, which ones leak a cookie where they should not, and which ones I quietly stop opening because they crash. That is the lens here. 5 things decide whether an anti-detect browser is worth running, and price is only one of them. What actually matters? The 5 axes are these: how convincingly each profile spoofs its fingerprint, how cleanly it separates storage so nothing bleeds between profiles, how well it holds up when you run a team and automation on top of it, how stable it is over weeks rather than one demo, and what it costs to run at your real profile count. Most reviews only talk about the first one and the last one. The middle 3 are the ones that actually decide whether the tool survives contact with daily use, so those are where I will spend the most time. What fingerprint isolation really means. Fingerprint isolation is not about how many values a browser can change. It is about whether the values it presents hang together. A profile that reports a phone screen while claiming a desktop CPU count is not disguised. It is flagged, because the parts contradict each other. A canvas reading that reshuffles on every single load looks less human than one that stays stable, the way a real device would. So the question I ask is not, does it spoof WebGL and fonts and the UA? Everything does that now. It is whether the whole picture stays internally consistent and boring, session after session, the way an actual machine would. Storage separation. The second axis is storage, and it is the one people forget. Each profile needs its own sealed container for cookies, local storage, cache, and service workers, so that a login in one profile never becomes a breadcrumb visible in another. This is what stops 2 of your accounts from being tied together by a shared cache artifact, even when their fingerprints and proxies look completely different. The good tools give every profile a genuinely separate jar. The weak ones share more than they admit. And that shared layer is exactly the seam a platform uses to link accounts you thought were isolated. The honest ceiling, up front. Here is the limit before I name a single product. None of these browsers touches the network you connect from, and none of them touches how you behave once you are inside. Assign a dirty data center IP to a perfect profile, and the account still reads wrong. Run 10 profiles in the same rhythm at the same minute every morning, and the fingerprints will not save you, because the pattern gives you away above the device layer. A good anti-detect browser removes one class of tell. It does not remove the 2 that get most people caught, so treat every ranking below as 1/3 of the job. Multi-login. Multi-login is the old name here, and it still sets the reference for fingerprint quality and consistency. It tends to be the most conservative, the most stable across updates, and the one I reach for on the accounts I least want to lose. The trade-offs are price, it sits at the top of the market, and profiles that lean on its cloud storage, which is a privacy choice you make on purpose. If your work is high stakes and low volume, this is often the one worth paying for. If you need 200 cheap profiles for low-risk testing, it is not built for that. Go Login lands as the more approachable option. Cheaper profile, with a friendlier interface and cloud profiles that make it easy to hop between machines. It covers the common fingerprint surfaces well enough for most social and marketplace work, and it has an API for automation. What you trade for the lower price is a little less of the deep consistency multi-login obsesses over, and a cloud-first storage model you should be deliberate about. For a solo operator running a moderate fleet who wants something that just works, it is an easy tool to recommend. The Miasketstitchat Pian Inzi Bonsten. Ads Power has become the volume favorite, especially for people running commerce and ad accounts, because it scales to a lot of profiles without the cost climbing as steeply, and its automation and APE support are genuinely strong. The local APE and the built-in scripting make it a natural fit if you drive profiles with Selenium or Puppeteer. The honest note is that a tool optimized for volume gets watched, and fingerprint templates shared across a huge user base can converge. So you have to put real effort into making your profiles look distinct, rather than trusting the defaults. Dolphin, usually seen as Dolphin Anti, sits close to Ads Power in spirit, popular with affiliate and media buying teams, with strong team features and a generous free tier that lets you try it at real scale before paying. Profile management and tagging are good, and the automation hooks are there. It is a capable, cost-effective choice for a team pushing a lot of accounts. As with any tool at that price and popularity, the fingerprinting is fine rather than exceptional, so it wants a clean proxy and careful behavior doing the heavy lifting alongside it. Cameo is the one I point automation-heavy people toward, because its API and its support for mobile profiles are a real strength, and it plays well with Selenium and Puppeteer out of the box. If part of your work needs to look like it comes from a phone rather than a desktop, its mobile fingerprinting is more serious than most. It is less of a point-and-click product and more of a builder's tool, so a non-technical operator may find it steeper, but for a workflow that is mostly scripted, it earns its place. Team features. Once more than one person touches the fleet, team features stop being a luxury. You want to share a profile without handing over a password, assign roles so a junior cannot export the whole list, and sync profiles between operators without leaking data between them. This is where Ads Power and Dolphin are strong and where the cheaper solo tools thin out. Get this wrong, and your biggest risk stops being the platform and becomes your own team, an operator signing into the wrong profile from an unproxied machine and tying two accounts together in one careless afternoon. Automation and API. If you scale, you automate, and the quality of the local API is what makes that pleasant or painful. The pattern is the same across the good ones. The browser exposes a local endpoint, you start a profile through it, it hands back a debugging port, and your Selenium or Puppeteer or Playwright script drives the real fingerprinted browser rather than a naked headless one. Ads Power and Cameo are the strongest here in my use. If automation is central to what you do, weight this axis heavily, because a tool with a clumsy API will cost you far more hours than the license ever saves. Stability. Stability is the boring axis nobody demos, and it is the one that quietly decides which tool you actually keep open. A browser that corrupts a profile after a cloud sync, or loses your cookies on an update, or hangs when you run 40 profiles at once, will cost you accounts no matter how good its fingerprinting looked in a review. This is where the older, more expensive tools tend to justify themselves, and where some of the cheap, high-volume ones make you pay in crashes. I weight a month of quiet reliability far above any single clever feature. Cloud versus local profiles. One quiet decision runs under all of these. Are your profiles stored locally on your own machine or in the vendor's cloud? Cloud storage is convenient. It syncs across machines and survives a dead laptop, but it means your full profile list and its cookies live on someone else's server. Local storage keeps that data with you and is more private at the cost of convenience and easy sharing. Neither is wrong, but it is a choice worth making on purpose rather than accepting whatever the default is, especially for the accounts you would most hate to expose. The arms race. A ranking like this has a shelf life because the detection side never stops. A browser that was the quiet leader 18 months ago can drift behind if its fingerprinting stops keeping pace. And a spoof that sailed through last year can become the exact tell that flags you now. This is why I care more about which vendors ship frequent, serious updates than about which one wins a single snapshot test today. A tool that was excellent and then went quiet is a tool I am slowly migrating off, whatever its reputation used to be. The Han, price, and how to read it. Price is real, but it is the last thing I look at, not the first, and you have to read it in the right unit. Some tools charge per profile, which punishes volume, and some charge per seat with generous profile counts, which rewards it, so the cheapest sticker can be the most expensive at your real scale. The free tiers on Dolphin and GoLogin are genuinely useful for testing the fit before you commit. The mistake is buying on headline price alone and discovering the model fights the way you actually work 3 months in. How to actually choose. So match the tool to the shape of your work. High stakes, low volume accounts you cannot afford to lose lean toward multi-login and its consistency. A solo operator wanting something friendly leans GoLogin. High volume commerce and ad work leans Ads Power or Dolphin for the scale and team features. And automation first, mobile leaning workflow leans Cameo. There is no single winner, only the tool that fits your platform, your team size, and how much you script. And the honest truth is that any of them, paired with a clean proxy and patient behavior, beats the best one used carelessly. I run these tools on live accounts every day, paired to the real Singapore mobile proxies and cloud phones I actually operate, which is the only reason I can tell you where each one holds up and where it does not. No affiliate guesswork. The tested picks and the full written guides are at multiaccountops.com, including how I configure a fresh profile, which proxy I pair with which platform, and the honest limits of each browser here. If you are about to spend money on one of these, start there before you do. Subscribe for more honest, tested multi-account ops. Next time, I take the winner of this roundup and set up a profile from scratch the right way, so the device layer finally agrees with the network story your proxy is telling.